Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us in this week's LChat. I'm sorry for the slight little hiccup we had. My audio isn't working, exited out, and whatever. We're here now. Thank you for jumping over here. I hope it wasn't too much trouble. I'm really excited that you all are joining me. For those of you who are new to LChat, this is just a once a week visual podcast of sorts where we get to talk about things specifically for creative business owners, topics like branding, design, marketing. It's an hour that's pretty informal to dive into those topics. And a lot of times I bring on another entrepreneur and pick their brain. And today, Kelsey Baldwin from Paper Oats is joining me, and I'm really excited to have her on board. But before I introduce her and we dive into creating and selling digital products, I want to just show you around this screen really quickly. It looks like you've already found the Q&A section. It's right underneath this window. Feel free to drop your questions in there. I know in the other Crowdcast window you had questions too, so I'll be sure to glance at those. But if you did have a question and you don't mind copying and pasting it into this question section, please do that. You can also vote your questions up. So if you see a question on there that you really want answered today, go ahead and vote it up, and we'll order, or Kelsey will answer them in order of the number of votes. You can also say hello in the comment section and just let us know that you can see us and hear us okay, and let us know what you do and where you're tuning in from today. We always love the feedback. But with that being said, I'm really excited that Kelsey is joining me. I meant to ask her before we jumped on exactly how we met up, because I feel like I've been following along with her forever. She's extremely talented. She's a designer too. She's also a really savvy creative entrepreneur, and I really love following along with her. She's also a single mom, so I have a lot of admiration for her running a business and being a mom full-time too. So Kelsey, thank you so much for joining me today and bearing with the trouble we had getting started.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me on. This will be fun.
Absolutely. So I want to hear about how you got started in digital products, but I really want to know too, kind of how you got started. How did you stumble into having your own business?
Well, I started freelancing probably about 10 years ago, actually. When I started college, I just kind of dove right in and wanted to learn the ropes. And so I'd actually find clients on Craigslist of all places, which I don't recommend doing. But I did a lot of free work just to get my feet wet, and just built it up from there. I went to school for design, and then I worked at an agency at the end of college and after college. And it was a really small firm, and it was really great to be able to learn from them, and they're very entrepreneurial. And so there was only, most of the time I was there was only about 5 or 6 of us. So you got a front row seat of them running the business, and they included you on a lot of the decision making. And so that was really cool to just see a creative business run and get to, go along for the ride. But I kind of stumbled. I've had an Etsy shop for a really long time, selling a lot of different things, mostly physical products, and kind of stumbled into this world of digital products about 3 years ago. I was looking for a meal planner for myself to use for grocery shopping, and had never really thought to look on Etsy for that. But I searched for it, and kind of all this whole world of digital products opened up that I didn't even know existed. And I was like, that's what I like to design, and here it is. So I started a shop pretty soon after that, or I kind of revamped my shop. I already had one, to focus more on those types of products and printable planners and organizers and calendars and that kind of thing. And so that took off pretty quickly. I tried to look at what was already on Etsy and do something design-wise a little bit different, and tried to make some products that were more gender neutral and not, just a little more minimal and not heavy on illustrations or anything. And they really took off. So I was able to quit my day job at the design firm about a year after that. That same year was when my husband left, and I was pregnant and had a baby, and so a lot of changes were going on. But I really dove into trying to make that shop really sustainable. and build it up so it could be this consistent income since I kind of lost another income. So, thankfully it really did well, and I was able to quit my job when my daughter was about 6 months old and take Paper Notes full time. And so half of it was kind of the Etsy shop with the digital products, and the other half was freelance work. And then just recently, I've kind of been moving away from freelance and more to all digital products and adding some e-courses and still blogging. And so it's kind of a conglomerate of a lot of different things right now. It's hard
to relate to that.
Yeah. Anytime anyone asks me what I do, I'm like, well, it's a lot of things, but yeah, it's always changing. And so that's kind of exciting.
That's awesome. So when you said you got started with digital products, what were your first digital products that you created, and how did you create them?
Well, I started with those printable planners on Etsy. So they're basically PDFs, like 5 to 15 pages. I have a few that are a lot bigger and some that are smaller. I'm kind of like an organization junkie. And so I just grew up, my mom's like that, my grandmother's like that. And we all just love like systems and planning. And so I kind of already had all that stuff in my head, and you just think, it comes naturally to me. Surely everyone knows how to, meal plan and plan a party or, plan for a baby or whatever. And that doesn't come naturally to people. So it was fun to be able to put that kind of thing, like mix that side of myself with design and create these planners so other people can figure out how to do that as well. And they're all pretty low priced things. So I just, when I first started, I figured, if nobody buys anything, I'm only out my time. I didn't pay to produce anything or ship anything. So that's what I love about digital products is there's no overhead really. So I just thought, I'll try it. If nobody buys it, I'll probably use it myself and dollars move on. But people like them. So that was good.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you've been talking about planners, and I know when I think about digital products, I think about printables and that sort of thing, but what all does digital products include? What could be included in that term?
Yeah, I think a lot of people go right to the like printable things. So PDF files or JPEGs or something that they can print at home. But it can be a really wide range of things. It's basically just anything that is delivered digitally. So not physically shipped or anything like that. So it could be anything from the printables like planners or calendars or printable artwork or printable stationery, all the way to like resources for designers like fonts or illustrations or icons or design files or templates, even into like video clips or stock photography or audio clips. And then even into, bigger things like e-courses that are kind of a lot of different pieces that come together to create this whole experience, or webinars like this, or a workshop, or just anything that isn't physical, basically.
Which feeds right into, because I feel like we're becoming more and more of a culture of instant gratification.
Yeah.
So someone can go on Etsy or another site and download something right away and have access to it, whether it's like you said, stock images or audio files or whatever it is that's digital. I feel like that's a huge, huge advantage for people.
Yeah.
So what would you say are some other advantages of not only on the receiving end of digital products, but on the front end for selling them, creating and selling them? Why should people focus on digital products?
Yeah. Well, kind of like I said before, you don't, I think the risk is really low. Like if, nobody buys it, then you're out your time that you spent to create it, but that's about it. And I think also it just is good to provide any kind of additional revenue stream for your business. So if you're a freelancer or provide some kind of service, that's dependent on your time. So you can only, take on as many clients as your schedule allows. And you're trading dollars for hours, is kind of the phrase that people throw around a lot. So digital products are great because you can create it once and then you can sell it over and over, and it's not dependent on your time, and it's not something that you have to put a lot of time into after it's created. It kind of runs automatically. So it creates this other revenue stream that kind of, if you can build it up to where it's consistent, it's a nice like baseline to kind of fall back on, I feel like, for especially for freelancers or service providers where it's, there's high seasons and low seasons. So it's nice to have that more consistent stream coming in that you can count on.
Yeah, I agree. I also, I love that I can create something once and market it. And then same thing with e-courses, that no matter how many people buy on, I did the same amount of work on the front end. So it didn't cost me time. I could just focus more of that effort on marketing it and trying to get as many people in the door as possible.
Yeah, it's a lot better for scaling your business than, if you're just, especially if you're just a one-person show, you can't, you can only do so much. You can only trade so much time for so much money. And so, yeah, it's good to be able to grow like that.
Yeah. So when you created those first printable planners and you were working on digital products, what programs did you use to create them and turn them into printables?
Well, all the files that I sell on my shop are PDFs, so I created them mostly in either Illustrator or InDesign. So a lot of people also use Canva. It's a free option. Being a designer, I just already used those programs, so I already knew them. So
yeah, and a lot of people too will sell. I think if you need ideas for what you could sell digitally, Creative Market, just go on there and look around too.
Yeah.
What kind of files people are sharing, and people even sell Photoshop actions and Illustrator files. Like depending on what program you use, you might be in luck for selling something digitally through those file types too.
Yeah.
For getting ideas. So you said that you started on Etsy. Why Etsy for digital products? And would you suggest that platform?
Yes, I would. I kind of gravitated towards Etsy because I was already on there, and around the time that I sort of stumbled into these printable planners and digital products was a time when they were kind of adding features to their platform to make it more friendly to shops who wanted to sell those types of things. So before, if someone bought it, you'd have to then, email them the file and try to do it quickly after they bought it so they can, have it right away. It was kind of a pain, but Etsy recently added the feature where when they buy it, they can download it automatically and like the payments process automatically. So just having that whole environment and that whole like shopping experience, like the back end of it, all those logistics of the payment and the cart and checking out and delivering the file, all those moving parts, Etsy already has systems in place for that. So that's why I like shopping there. Plus, a lot of people, go to Etsy to look for things rather than typing something into Google. They're going to go to Etsy and search for something. Kind of like, I think a lot of people use Pinterest for that too. If you're looking for a recipe or a craft or something, they'll go right there. So I feel like the pool is kind of smaller, and you have better odds of getting noticed.
Yeah, I know if I want to find something, especially if it's something creative, knowing that I can find someone on Etsy who is trying to grow their business too. I usually like to support those smaller businesses on Etsy. So going and searching for them there is really helpful. And two, have you used any other platforms other than Etsy for digital products, or have you stayed there this whole time?
I have all of my products also on my Squarespace site. So using their e-commerce platform, which works the same way, it delivers everything automatically. And then another site that I actually had a few things on is called Teachers Pay Teachers. And I have a lot of teacher friends, just people that I went to high school with or I'm friends now with. And when I first started, they were telling me about this site, and it's basically teachers who create resources for other teachers, all digital products. And so I have a few like classroom specific planners and printable kits. So I put those up on there, and I don't know that platform very well. It's kind of its own little world. And so and a lot of what they sell on there is more like curriculum based. And so I get like a couple sales a month from it. And so, every little bit helps. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of those like really, really niche platforms that you could look into as well.
It's funny that you say that, because I think it was like a year or two ago when some of my teacher friends were like, you need to put stuff on Teachers Pay Teachers.
Yeah.
I didn't think about it, but you're right too. If you create something, a digital product, and it's a PDF or a workbook or something along those lines, it doesn't hurt to have it on Etsy and then have it on your Squarespace site and find multiple places to put it if you're trying to get recognition for it. And I think Etsy is really great too, because if you don't have an audience and you don't have people coming to your site or following along with you just yet, or you don't have very many, then being found on Etsy is awesome. And I feel like more people are looking for digital products on Etsy now, and they're aware of it. Would you say that too?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, I have a lot of friends that come to me and they know I'm a designer, and so like, can you design my kid's birthday invitation? And I politely decline just because I don't have a lot of time. But I always direct them there. I'm like, Etsy's a really great place to find. I mean, there's some really great designers on there. Also, a place like Minted is a really good one especially for invitations and announcements and stuff. So I direct people there a lot to I think a lot of people think of it as like, oh, that's for DIY people or somebody on a budget. But I mean, there's really high quality, full wedding suites on there that are beautiful. And so I think there's something for everybody.
Yeah. And that brings up another good point too, because that's actually how I started the library, the Ellen Company library, which is full of files specifically for creative entrepreneurs now. But I had a bunch of freelance projects sitting around, invitations, gift tags, just things that I'd done with my blog and for other clients. And so those designs were just sitting on my computer. They were just files. And I thought I could totally make use of these. And so I started to sell them as digital products with my client's permission, of course. Or I could change the colors or the styles, something like that. But as a designer, for me to be able to use my work again and again, and maybe even just customize it just a little or tweak it when I was first starting, was huge. Especially for things like prints and easy things that people search for and can print off on their own.
Yeah. I did that too with a site. I can't remember. It's called Brand Crowd, or maybe they have changed the name. That might be the old name, but they sell like pre-made logos. And so I just threw up a whole bunch of like, concepts that a client didn't choose from years and years and years ago.
Yeah.
And made them a little more generic. And I mean, anything like that, it's like, it doesn't hurt to just put it up on there. And I think I've maybe had 3 sales probably in the last 3 years, but it's, stuff that's already done. So it doesn't take much time to do it.
Yeah. So once you have this stuff up on Etsy, and this is the one thing that, one problem that I've run into specifically with having digital products is because it's so easy to download and they are files, people copying your work or other people following really closely. I know too, I've learned how to save PDFs so that they aren't editable in Illustrator. But people used to just take it into Illustrator, change some colors, and then resell it on another platform. So, and I should have mentioned this a while ago to you all. Kelsey, is this, I think, the last day of launching Etsy on autopilot? Is that right?
Yes, it is. It'll be open year round, but the price goes up after today. Yeah.
Gotcha. So she actually has a course on how to develop products for Etsy. And I haven't taken it, but I can say that everything that Kelsey does, she goes above and beyond on. I'm always floored at all the work that goes into everything she does. So I'm certain that it's awesome. But as I was thinking about it, is this something you cover in the course too, with protecting your work and making sure that other people don't steal it?
Yeah, I do talk about that a little bit in the last lesson of the course. And I think it's something that just comes with the territory of digital products. I think a lot of, they're files. So there's nothing to keep a customer from forwarding it onto a friend.
Right.
I think there are things, like you said, putting protections on a PDF of not letting, them open it and edit it. Also, I try to put in a lot of my copy, like in the descriptions of my product, just that it's intended for a single user. Please don't share it. Be respectful of, a designer and a small business and the work that went into it. But there's really no way to like track that or enforce it. I think for the most part, most people are honest, but I'm sure there's some that pass things along and you can't really do anything about it. But one thing I talk about a little bit in the course is other shops, like you said, who take a design and, rip it off or try to resell it on another platform. When I was on Etsy, when I first started on Etsy, there was like a big thing with like these Chinese websites that were pulling just the exact images from your shop with your logo on it and everything. And they weren't delivering products, we don't think, to customers. They were just taking money. But it was frustrating. You can't really, there's nothing you can do about it, especially because they were in another country and we tried to do, lawsuit stuff, but we couldn't really get any traction. But, I talk a little bit about like confronting people like that. I think that's kind of the only way really to do it on Etsy. Etsy doesn't really get involved in disputes between shops, just because there's so many of them. That would be like a full-time job for like a whole team of people probably. And so they always just encourage you to kind of, handle things yourselves. So I do have in the course like an email script that I've tweaked a lot over the years and I've had to send it a couple times to shops that created things that are, nearly identical. And especially when you're creating products like, from your own systems and your own, and a lot of my stuff is for kids and moms. And so a lot of it is pulled like from my own childhood. So like, it's kind of obvious when a shop, pulls the content directly, that, I created it from the heart. So I know that that's, a ripoff. And so I think just confronting people in a kind way and giving them grace. And a lot of people will reply and say like, oh, I'm so sorry. I took, inspiration too far and I didn't really realize it, and I'll change some things. And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And you can't really, I think you just have to eventually forget about it and try to stay ahead of the curve a little bit and keep your things unique. And hopefully people shopping can tell, the originals from the not originals.
Yeah, I agree. In the times that it's happened to me, I did put a disclaimer on my site or a notice. This goes to show I need to brush up on all my legal terminology. But when I worked with my lawyer for a few items for Ellen Company, in my terms and conditions, I have that on there. And also within the library, just to notice, remember that, these aren't to be shared with other people or used in another way, so that if they ended up copying them, that I would have a legitimate reason to say, hey, please stop reproducing this, and you agreed when you signed up, go back to that. And like you said, do it in a kind way. People usually take it down right away. But taking those precautions and realizing that there is a little bit of risk there with digital products, but like you said, to make it unique and make it one of a kind, so that it is a little easier to spot if somebody is looking at your work too closely. And speaking of that, because digital products you see more and more out there now. So on a site like Etsy, where there might be a lot of different planners or a lot of different printables, how do you suggest standing out on a platform like that? Are there ways that you can kind of set your shop apart from other shops on Etsy?
Yeah, that's something I talk about too a lot in the course, and I think that's probably the number one question I get about selling on Etsy is, how do you stand out in such a massive marketplace? And I think it's just really important, like we've said, to make products that have a little bit of your own twist on it, are different than what's already being done out there, but in a market that's already proven that customers want to buy that. But finding a way to make, maybe the design of it unique or the delivery of it unique, or just something about it different than what's already being done, so that people will take notice of it. Also practically, just like when you search for something on Etsy, all of the listings have these thumbnails with them that show up. And so it's like a grid of all these thumbnails when you search. So I think a really important thing, something that's helped my shop a lot, is just making that thumbnail really, really different than everything else. So using color and shapes and layouts to really like showcase what it is you're selling, but make it, when people look at this grid of, 9, 12 images, that yours is the one that sticks out to them, just design wise. So that's something too that I talk about a lot in the course.
That's awesome. I'm sure photography can play a big role too in it looking professional and
yeah.
That's awesome. We have some really great questions coming in. I just took a peek at them.
Yeah.
And so do you mind, I know I'm jumping over there early, but they're bringing up a lot of great
yeah, totally.
topics. So, and then if we get through all of these, there's 7 at the moment. So y'all, if you have more questions, feel free to drop them in the question section, and I'll be sure to hop on over to the other window too, and keep that in mind. But we'll start here. And Marissa says, hi Marissa, good to see you in here too. She says, do you recommend leaving digital products up all the time or opening and closing their purchase time like e-courses? Also, is there a formula you use to take into consideration the time spent, value added, and knowledge you have to price your digital products? So we'll start with the first one. Do you recommend leaving your digital products up in your shop all the time, or do you think it's smarter to open and close it like e-courses?
Yeah. I think for like smaller products, like my principal planners or anything that's like a lower priced product, I think it's fine to leave it up year round. I think a lot of that open close stuff is more for like larger products like an e-course, where it's kind of this whole experience. Also because for me anyway, I would assume probably for your e-courses as well, you have involvement like with it, even after, someone buys it, you're answering questions, you're interacting with them maybe in a community forum or on a webinar like this or something. So, it still takes time to nurture those students and make sure that they're, getting everything out of the course. So I think opening it and closing it kind of helps the creator of it to kind of manage their time a little bit better and make sure they have time to devote to the students. So I think that's a reason that a lot of people do that. And just because they're higher priced items, it can help with sales too, to just create a little bit of like that urgency to have it only open at certain times. Some things too are like a little more seasonal, maybe having to do with certain times of the year, like the holidays or like starting something in the new year or something. So it kind of depends, but I think for lower priced products, opening and closing isn't really necessary, but higher priced ones, it's kind of personal preference.
Yeah, I would agree. I know for my library, it's also a little different because people aren't purchasing item by item. They're instead purchasing the library, and then they have access to all the files, which has been difficult in a way to continue to promote the library. I know what you're getting at, Marissa, when you say opening and closing, because it does create more hype and more attention and just a sense of urgency for someone to buy it. But I think coming out with, maybe you rotate your products, or maybe every so often you have a launch to bring attention back to your digital products. I'm still trying to figure that one out too, Marissa.
Me too.
It's a good question, and you could test it and try it out and see how it works, depending on what you're selling. And I think, like Kelsey said, price point could be huge too. Now, in terms of pricing, in the same question, Marissa says, is there a formula you use to take into consideration the time spent, the value added, and the knowledge you have to price your products? So, Kelsey, what would you recommend in terms of pricing and knowing how much to charge for these digital products?
Yeah, I don't have like a specific formula or anything that I use, but I kind of take into consideration my time that it took to create the product, and then also the customer's time, like how much I'm saving them by creating a system or something, or making something more convenient so they can accomplish something quicker. So it's kind of taking into account what's the value of both of those things. And then also I think a really big one is just looking at the whole market and, what are other similar things priced at out there. I know from my planners on Etsy, I kind of wanted to be just like right in the middle of a lot of the price ranges. I didn't want to be on the low end or the high end. So I did a lot of research of just looking at, specifically I think of like my wedding planner. I looked at, tons and tons of other wedding planners on Etsy and what are they priced at and how many pages are there and, what's the quality of the design and like the function of the product, like what are they providing. And so I think that goes into it a lot too, just seeing what's already out there and where you want to be in the mix, if you want to be at the high end or the low end or the middle. So there's not a formula, but research I think is kind of all you can do.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I think seeing what other people are offering is really smart. And just seeing if your designs are a little bit better or more pages or something like that. If you are going to charge more, just have a reason behind it.
And I think too, like now that I have more products, when I create something new, I kind of try to price it in proportionate to everything else. So maybe based on page numbers sometimes, or if there's like a similar product, like making it similar in price. I think that's probably pretty important too. And you can always tweak it. Like when I first was listing things, there was a time where I feel like every week I would bump something up like $1 and then like back down $1 and just like kind of try different things to see, what's sticking. So, you're not stuck to one thing, you can change it.
Yeah, that's another great thing about digital products, especially ones that are lesser priced. You can kind of play around with it and see what might work best. Is there an option in Etsy and it shows how long it's been, but can you search by price, like within this price range for this product?
I think so, yeah. I think you can narrow down search results like that.
Because that would be helpful too if you want to be on the lower end. Maybe it's like products less than $10. Maybe you charge $9.99 for it to still be grouped in there.
Yeah.
Get strategic about it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Great questions, Marissa. Thank you. We'll keep moving on. Thresha, I think is how you pronounce it. If that's not how you pronounce it, I am terribly sorry. But she asks, how many digital products should you have in your shop at a time?
That's a really good question. I think there's kind of this myth that floats around that you have to have 50 products in your Etsy shop to get noticed. I don't really know like where that came from or what, but Etsy will tell you exactly what criteria they use for their algorithm, and they say like it has nothing to do with how many products you have in your shop. So I don't really know where that came from, but a lot of people preach that, and it's frustrating to me because I'm like, that's not true. So I think just statistically, the more products you have, the more you're going to show up in search results, just because you'll reach a wider audience with more products. But there was a time where I had over 50 and it was a consistent amount of sales for the last year or so. I've had about 39 products in my shop, and I haven't noticed any difference in sales or anything. So I don't have an answer really. How many, more, I don't know, more is better, but more could mean something different to everybody. I think some shops, especially ones that sell like resources for designers, like patterns or illustrations, they can have over 100 things in their shop, just different variations of, the same products. And so for me as a shopper, I feel like that's kind of overwhelming, but I don't know. I mean, maybe it works for them. I think you just kind of have to try out different things.
So for those who are just starting out, the thought of creating like 30 digital products to fill up your shop at once can be a little overwhelming. Do you think it's better to launch a shop and just continue to add? Maybe you have 5 at first and continue to add, or would you recommend that right from the get-go you do the work on the front end and come up with 20 digital products and then open your shop? What would you suggest?
I don't think it really matters. I think if you have one, why not go ahead and post it and see what happens? That's what I did. I just sort of would post things as I finished them. It was kind of I got excited about it, and so I made a lot in a pretty short amount of time. But I'm always adding things to the shop every year. I try to plan out at the beginning of the year what I want to add. But another way too that you can create more products without having to like create something new from scratch is maybe bundling things together to create a third product, or making like different size variations of the same product, or different color variations or something like that. So there's ways you can add more to your shop without having to like completely start over every time.
Yeah, that's a really smart idea. Doing even just, those are such easy changes to make in Illustrator and InDesign too, to just go in and switch out colors.
Yeah.
Somebody from buying if it's pink and they wanted green. So
Yeah.
I understand that too. All right. We'll keep moving through these. Elizabeth says that, she says, I feel that selling digital products has really become popular over the last few years, especially after Etsy launched their digital product feature. How do you differentiate your products and or brand from competitors? Also, are there any special marketing tools or tricks you utilize to entice customers to follow through with the purchase? So we talked about that just a little bit, but how do you go about differentiating your products when there might be a ton of other wedding planners on Etsy?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, kind of how we talked about just finding ways, even if they're small ways, to make yours different than everybody else's. I know for me, like you said, the wedding planning kit, when I was married, I planned my own wedding. And so I had a lot of systems and things like that from that I pulled from to create mine. And I kind of marketed that a little bit in my product description, just saying like, this is what I used to create, to plan my wedding I did it under $5,000. And so kind of saying like, if you really plan things out and try to DIY things, you can
save money.
Yeah, you can get a wedding on budget. So I think, even things like that kind of in your marketing of selling your product, describing kind of where it came from and how you created it and where the systems came from, if it's like a planner or something like that. And then also in the design of it, like I said before, a lot of what was on Etsy when I first started was really, really feminine designs, a lot of like florals and hearts and clip art and stuff like that. And I just wanted to kind of pare it all down and keep my designs really minimal and really gender neutral. I have a lot of men actually that buy my products. I'm kind of surprised, and they always write me and they're like, thank you for creating something that doesn't have flowers on it. And, I feel okay using, especially teacher stuff, like I feel okay using this in my classroom, and it's not like super girly or anything, or super like little kiddish or babyish for baby product. So I think finding ways like that to really make yours different than what's already out there.
Yeah, I love that you said in the subject line too. I think as a designer, I always think about the visual aspect of selling products and courses and that sort of thing. But to think about the actual like verbiage you use and telling a story, I think it's that personal connection too that entice people to want to follow through on a purchase and buy it.
Yeah.
And it makes me think, this might sound really silly, but going along with storytelling, it just keeps coming up. I love to watch cooking shows and cooking content. Pleasure of mine, Chopped and Cutthroat Kitchen. And there was one person, and I noticed they were doing this, and I caught on quickly, especially with like thinking about marketing. And they told a story with every dish that they served.
Oh, wow.
And I think she was making some of them up, to be honest. She even admitted that she was doing it. But I found even myself like, oh, she made that, or she got that idea from honeymooning in Hawaii. Like, oh, that's neat. Just having like a personal connection along with something gives people something to connect with, or find an end to connect with. And like you said, if they can also save money, or there's a result that you're focusing on, not even the product, like if you're selling the result. So you're buying this printable, but it's going to help you save money, or save time, or feel less stressed, or whatever it is, to sell that outcome.
Yeah, I have a lot of like baby and mom kits as well in my shop. And I like from the beginning, I knew I wanted to have ones like that, but I didn't, at the time I didn't have a baby. And so I was like, I don't know what a new mom needs or anything. And so I purposefully waited until like while I was pregnant, I created all my pregnancy kits. And while I had my newborn, I created my newborn kits. And so I try to create products from my own experiences. So, I mean, that's just a way also to protect yourself, I think, and not look to someone else and try to recreate what they've done, but creating things that you need yourself. And I mean, I add things to my kits a lot too, of like meal planning stuff. Like, oh, it'd be really helpful to just have like a list of, all your go-to meals. Like I catch myself wondering like, what do I eat? I don't even remember what types of meals I make if I haven't been to the store in a while. So like I'll add a page like that to my kit if I think, it would be helpful. So
yeah. Do you also share, so not only just like the printable, but do you share kind of the outcome or what it would look like to like fill in the printable or share how it's being used? Because I would imagine that might help and entice people to buy if they see the outcome of whatever it might be that you're selling.
Yeah. I don't really, but I have thought about that recently, that I do want to do more of that kind of thing and maybe provide more of like almost like maybe an ebook with each one of like, here's some tips of how to use this product and ways you can use it. Just to, help out with that. Cause some people buy it and they're like, okay, now what do I do? Like if stuff doesn't come naturally to them. And so something to, sort of help them along. And I think again, this kind of comes back to marketing, but I think that's where like blogging can be really powerful in that showing a customer like how to use your product through your blog can help them to sort of like continue that education and stay connected to you, and down the road help you, maybe sell more products to them or a different product to them, and helps them use the product that they bought. So
definitely easier to get returning customers than it is new customers. So going above and beyond and surprising them, or if it is extremely helpful, they'll want to come back to you time and again. I just had this thought too, and all this is for free, but like, and it made me think of it when you were talking about having like a guide to go along with it. Maybe you put together a teeny video of how to use it or something that also makes it more personable, more professional, and kind of like an extra bonus to share with people too. I don't know. I just find more stuff going over to video and audio and things like that. I love printable things, but if that might be easier for you too, that's also an option. So.
Yeah. I've done a little bit like on social media of like showing a picture of a printable, like, partially filled in or something like that.
Right.
So I think, stuff like that, that's a good point to help show how it's used.
Yeah.
You can always learn and add.
Yeah, exactly. Another great thing about digital products.
Yeah.
So I hope that was helpful for you, Elizabeth. And if you all have ideas too, feel free to start leaving them in the comments. Even if you're watching this in a replay, I know I scroll through the comments. I'm guessing other people do too.
I do that too.
Okay, good to know. All right, Marissa asks, what options are there out there for someone who has an idea for a digital product but can't design it? Are there any ebook templates or other templates available to purchase somewhere? She says she has basic InDesign and Illustrator skills, but she doesn't feel like she excels in those platforms, and she often gets frustrated. So do you have any tips for platforms where you can create it if you don't feel Illustrator or InDesign savvy?
Yeah, I think there are some, I think I've seen some like ebook templates out there. I'm trying to think where, maybe like Creative Market or a place like that that's a little more tailored to designers. I think also like if you already have basic InDesign or Illustrator knowledge, maybe taking a course or reading up on just general like design principles can be good. Our friend Jamie from Spruce Road comes to mind. She has a lot of really great free resources on her blog about just design principles and kind of getting back to the basics of what looks good and what works. And so I think if you have like a basic knowledge of the software, maybe brushing up on that side of your skills could be helpful. Yeah, that would be my advice.
Yeah, I know Paul Jarvis too. If you're thinking about something like maybe you have a course and you want a workbook to go along with it or something like that. I think he just launched it. It's called Of Course Books, and
Yes.
you do it digitally. Have you heard of that too?
Yeah, well, he did that with Jason Zook,
Yeah.
and he did a while back, Buy My Future, where he's so creative, and I love following what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like totally aside, but um, he sold his future so you could buy into anything he creates for the rest of his life. And that was, he helped create that. So yeah, I got free access to, of course, books, and it's really, really cool. I've thought about using it myself, but it's like an online workbook, basically.
Yeah. So that came to mind for some reason for me. But
Yeah.
also too, and I'm just throwing this out there, Marissa, because I know you're a library user. But Jamie from Spruce Road, again, she's an awesome designer.
Yeah.
For the library, she included some like workbook templates and things of that nature in there too. So if you're having trouble, that might be helpful for you too. And if anybody else knows other resources, feel free to drop them in the comments.
Yeah.
We're getting some really great questions. Okay. Hannah says, some authors of ebooks choose to sell through their website instead of or in addition to Amazon, Etsy, etc., simply because you get to keep a larger percentage of your revenues. Is there a way that makes selling from your site easy? And what are your thoughts on sites like Gumroad?
That's a really good question. I think kind of how we said before, I think it's a good thing to have your stuff on multiple platforms. I don't think it hurts anything.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really important to have your own brand and your own place where customers can come, like your website, to connect with you, and you can, they're on your turf, and you can collect an email address and provide content to them. And so I think as long as places like Amazon or Etsy or Gumroad, if those are kind of directing people back to your site, so that they can be in your environment, I think that's good. But I think using a site like Gumroad, which I've used before, I really love them, is great because they have that whole system in place of the buying and the payment processing and delivering the product. I mean, you just can't beat that, really. And I know for your standalone site, if you're going to sell on that, I use Squarespace, and you do too, I know. And so they have a really slick e-commerce platform for that. I think there's a lot of plugins probably for WordPress for different options. I think it's harder to sell on your own site and nowhere else, just because it's harder to get found. You really have to put a lot of effort into marketing. If you're going to do that, I think you have to anyway, but especially if you're only on your site, just because the pool is a lot bigger.
Right.
And if you're in a place like Amazon or Etsy, they seem really big, but they're not as big as, the entire internet. So I think you have a better chance on some of those smaller marketplaces to get noticed. But yeah, as long as people are being directed back to your site so that you can stay in contact with them, I think that's really important.
Yeah, I think that's very true. You are opening yourself up to a wider audience when you're on sites like Etsy. But like you said, in order to sell on your own site, you need to be driving traffic, and you need to get it in front of people. And that's where things like blogging can come in really handy, because people are continually coming to your storefront of sorts, which is your website.
Yeah.
So that's a great question, Hannah. Thank you. I hope that was helpful for you. This is a great question from Diana. She said, when selling digital products, do you find you have to follow up with a lot of customer service questions, like how to download and open the PDF or how to print it properly? So how much time do you normally spend on the administrative side of digital products?
Yeah, I think you can spend a pretty good amount of time. It probably depends what you're selling. And I think I go through seasons where I get, a question or two every day through Etsy about a product, and there are seasons where I don't really get any. So, but a great thing about Etsy is you can set up something called snippets, and they're like canned responses. So for a lot of those common questions, like how do I download it, or I I lost my email. How do I get my file again? How do I print it? Do you recommend, a printer or something like that? Just having a canned response that you can just click one button and it answers it for them is really great for those types of questions. And it just automates the whole process. So you don't have to spend as much time on that kind of thing, but you will spend some. And I put all that information in so many places, but you'll still get questions about it. So
I think, like you said, thinking ahead on what are people going to ask, or as people ask questions, just take your answer and put it into your FAQ section. I even started, all of my digital products are on my site. On my contact page, before you ever get to the contact button, I put all my FAQs ahead of time and said, please check these out before reaching out to me. It would save both of us time on both ends, because you'll find your answer, hopefully, there.
Yeah, I noticed that. I think that's a great idea.
Thank you. That was after a while. I didn't think of that. that was after answering the same questions over and over again.
Yeah.
But don't let those administrative things deter you from digital downloads, because still, or digital products, because they're still going to save you so much more time than client work or service-based work too. So it's not too bad, but you will get questions. And I think too, Kelsey, you could probably vouch for this. It probably depends on the size of your shop too, and how many orders are coming in. And so, great question, Diana. Denise says, do you go into detail on how to get found or seen on Etsy in your course without using advertising? So is that something you cover in Etsy on Autopilot?
Yeah, in lesson 5 of the course is all about promotion and marketing. And I'm going to guess that you're talking about paid advertising on Etsy, or maybe paid advertising anywhere. And I do talk about that a little bit. I don't think it's worth it personally. I think maybe for some industries it works for them. I tested it out and tried paid Etsy ads for a little while, and I think I got one sale from it, because Etsy tracks how many sales come from your ads, which is nice, so you can see how they're performing. And I think I put a $7 cap on it, and someone bought a $7 product. And so I broke even, but it really didn't get anything else besides that. So, and I've also tried paid advertising on a blog, did a ton of research on what blog I wanted to do. And I did it when I was starting out pretty early on. So it was kind of a big investment for me, because advertising on blogs now is pretty expensive. And it didn't really end up turning out much sales either. So I talk in the course a lot about other methods. I think just utilizing Etsy's search engine and making sure your listings are optimized for that is really, really important. There's kind of some little tricks you can do of like wording and where to place things, and making sure you're using relevant tags and keywords and stuff so that you get found. And kind of learning about what words customers are using to describe your product can be helpful too. And then, I talk about marketing outside of Etsy too is really important, of content marketing like blogging or social media, email marketing, trying to stay connected with them so you can, keep up with them on a regular basis and just keep them, keep yourself in front of them a little bit. So I talk about a lot of ways that are free. They're not fast always. Some of them take time and patience, but a lot of them are free.
Awesome. Well, it is almost 4 o'clock here, probably 3 o'clock there. I think you're on Central Time.
Yep.
But thank you so much for diving into digital products and how to create and sell them, Kelsey. Really appreciate it, and so much helpful feedback. So thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And if people want to learn more about your course, where should they go?
Yeah, they can go to etsyonautopilot.com. And I have all the information about the course on that page. And there's 2 different options, kind of a basic one that's sort of the bare bones of the course, and then a full version that has a lot of extras to help you kind of speed the process along a little bit. And those are all, the prices go up tonight at midnight. So they'll be available year round, but the best value ends today.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And guys, I also included the link to Etsy on Autopilot. It should be like right here on your screen. But thank you all so much for tuning in. Next week, we're skipping a week for LChat. I will be out of town at the beach with my in-laws. But the following week, I'll be talking about streamlining your client process. I know it can be a little bit of a headache to balance multiple deadlines and timelines and just figuring out how to come up with a system. So we're going to talk about that, and I have some helpful ways to help you streamline your client process and make it run like a well-oiled machine. So if you want to, you can click on, I think my face is somewhere around here on the screen. That you can go to my account and you can go ahead and register for that event. And I think you can now follow along with people on Crowdcast too. So if you're interested in future LChats, you can start following along with my account too. But thank you all so much for joining. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope to see you in another LChat soon. And be sure to go check out Etsy on Autopilot. I'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.